Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Well, welcome back to the Israel issue, where today we're thinking about the last constituent of the sap or the nourishment that can be drawn from the roots of Israel because of the gifts that God uniquely placed into the roots of Israel. And this last gift we're thinking about today is the gift of the patriarch, about which Paul said in Romans 9:5, to them belong the patriarchs, and from them, according to the flesh, the Messiah, who is over all, God, blessed forever. Now, Paul had evidently seen from the heritage that came from Abraham, Isaac and Jacob and their descendants, as it continued to profoundly bless the Jewish people, the immense significance of the patriarchs. That's why he used them as the final gift with which to round off that list that he had placed at the start of the Romans 9 to 11 passage. And then through this, he'd shown how it was possible for spiritual fruit to issue out of their lives in a way that would draw other nations to the one true God, the God of Israel. But so significant was the gift of the patriarchs that he'd also used it to round off the whole of the Romans 9 to 11 passage by emphasizing the unique blessing there was in this gift for all who are of Israel, saying, Romans 11:28, but concerning chosenness, they are loved on account of the patriarchs. So Paul had clearly seen how significant was the generational blessing that had come from God's choice of the patriarchs, how it had gone down from one generation to another. Indeed, that had the nation of Israel truly drawn from what God had placed into its roots supernaturally and ministered to them through the patriarchs, then Israel truly could have been a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, and it would have impacted the world. But of course, as we so well know, Israel often gave up on God. But even so, the God of Israel never gave up on Israel, which is why he sent to the nation their Messiah, the Jewish Messiah, Yeshua, who took to himself each of those gifts that God had placed into the roots, and he then took them to himself, transforming them, redeeming them, filling them with resurrection life, changing them in just the same way that he changed water into wine. And he was able to do this because of his own generational lineage. As we're told at the end of the book of Revelation, in words that we are told to take nothing from or add to in any way. They are so significant just as they are. He spoke of himself saying he was the root and the offspring of David and the bright morning star, about which he'd already spoken of when he said, before Abraham was born, I am. Because of Yeshua's generational identity, this supernatural generational identity, he was able to restore Israel's potential to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. And that's why Peter could take the opportunity to say to the Jewish onlookers who'd seen the healing of the cripple at the gate, beautiful, and you are heirs of the prophets and of the covenant God made with your fathers. He said to Abraham, through your offspring, all peoples on earth will be blessed. So this miracle was also a parable of what God desired to happen in the nation of Israel. Because just as strength came into the cripple's feet and ankles and legs, causing him to spring up, to jump up and to walk, causing amazement and wonder amongst the onlookers, this is what God wanted to do through the nation of Israel. And it could now happen if Israel would draw from the strength that would come from the roots God had given through the patriarchs, allowing the strength to come up into the nation, bringing life and vitality back to it, and it would cause wonder and amazement amongst the onlooking world. To which Israel as a nation could then say to the onlooking world, why does this surprise you? Why do you stare at us as if by our own power or godliness we have made this man walk? And this day will indeed come, and indeed it may not be so long from now. But it's not here yet. And so meanwhile, we who have any measure of understanding of what it means to actually be grafted into Israel have both the privilege and the responsibility to demonstrate, to exemplify in our own lives what it means to draw strength from the roots of Israel and the gifts that God has placed into those roots and redeemed through Yeshua, to show what issues forth as spiritual fruit in our lives. And this happens, as we thought about in the previous episodes, as we live as heirs of God's character and being, as we reflect God's glory in the community of believers, as through the blood of the covenant we become complete in every good work to do His will, as we express grace-inspired obedience based on Yeshua's fulfillment of the law, as we see everything we do as spiritual service, our bodies being the temple of God, and as we walk in God's promises as the expression of His righteousness. And when distinctive spiritual fruit issues forth in our lives as a result of us drawing from those roots of Israel that Yeshua has redeemed, that we who are grafted into can now draw from it, then we have the opportunity to witness to Gentile believers about it who have not fully understood what it means to be grafted into Israel. But even more than this, we can contribute to that witness to the Jewish people, which will ultimately lead them into what Romans 11 calls jealousy. And when they reach that point of seeing what we are drawing from their roots, we can then have the opportunity to tell them about their Jewish Messiah. And the more of them that receive Him and draw strength themselves from what has been placed into their roots, then the nation as a whole will begin to find strength coming into its feet and its ankles and legs, and it will start to rise up with spiritual strength in such a way that it will be nothing less than life from the dead. Isn't that the most amazing privilege to have been given? And it's all possible because of Yeshua's redeeming of the gifts of the patriarchs that God placed into the roots of Israel. Such that, as Paul puts it, if you belong to Messiah, then you are Abraham's seed, heirs according to the promise. So if you'd like to think more about drawing up that strength from the gift of the patriarchs, and indeed from all the other gifts that God placed into the roots of Israel, that you may draw up strength from them, that they might rise up into you like sap, enabling spiritual fruit that can develop in your life to the praise and glory of God, then do go to our website, www.lethelionroar.com, go to the Israel Issue tab, and you'll find a short study to go with today's episode. You'll also find all the previous episodes with studies to go with them as well. If you're watching for the first time, do hit the subscribe button so that you'll receive the Israel Issue direct in the future, and also do tell others about this most important of messages. And I look forward to being back with you in the not too distant future with another series of the Israel Issue.